Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye,
SpongeBob and Patrick are in the building. The voice actors behind everyone's favorite Sponge and Starfish are here. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for your moderator. She's back again to bring out the stars of this show. Please put it together for London Jackson. Hi. I'm here again if you were here for the Steven Universe panel. So I'm London Jackson, and as a now 20-year-long fan of SpongeBob SquarePants, I am so ecstatic to introduce our two panelists for this. And of course, we have the voices of both SpongeBob and Patrick, Tom Kenny and Bill Fagerbakke. They're coming, I think.
I'm ready.
Maybe.
Ready.
They're there, I promise.
I was like, did she introduce us yet? You're good? Well, we're just waiting. You're good, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good.
Look, they have our names on both sides so we know who we are. I don't forget.
Tom Kenny, got it.
So, SpongeBob has been on for now 20 years, and when you started working on the show, did you ever think that it would be such a huge part of popular culture?
That's a good one, London. That's a good one. Because I didn't think that. Tom, did you?
No, we were just, your first priority as an actor is just to get the job. Right. Then you hope that the show keeps on going for a season or two.
You just want a check from a reputable organization.
Yeah, you just hope the check clears. But then within a couple of seasons, it became obvious that this show really had legs, and that people really liked it, and that multiple generations liked it. And now 20 years later, it's become this thing where it's really mind-blowing, where sometimes you'll see grandparents, parents, adult kids, and their kids, and it's 4 generations, and that's that's when you start to feel like you're a bazillion years old. Yeah.
Look, there's some people there, prisoners over there. Be careful, don't put your hand through those bars.
It's like SpongeBob at Folsom. I love it. When I was just a young sponge, my daddy told me, son.
Was there a moment in this entire run where you realized that, wow, this show is basically a phenomenon? Was there something that made you realize, wow, it's
when
huge...
the show started when my daughters were 5 and 7, and I realized we were doing something pretty special when every time I rolled into the elementary school to pick up my girls, I felt like Ringo or Paul or all these kids, Patrick! I go, wow.
Well, and it's funny, our kids are in their 20s, and I also have a daughter who's still a teenager, who's in high school, and I was at her high school play last night. My kids are 6 years apart, and just hanging out in the hallway, after the play, SpongeBob still means something to high schoolers now, people who are high school age now. Yeah. They still love it. You're going to the play tonight. Yeah. They're going to go bonkers. So it's funny. Like I said, the longevity of it is something that you don't often get a chance to experience in this business. Everything's kind of ephemeral, especially now.
Yeah.
Right.
Stuff will be really huge for a minute and then utterly disappears. So Stuff burns really bright and really hot for a really short amount of time.
It's hard to get along over 15 minutes, over that 15 minute allotment.
SpongeBob's had so many more minutes than 15. We are thrilled. 20 years. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because of you guys. Because of you guys. It's really gratifying. I mean, I don't know that we've ever had or ever will have another job like this where there's just something about the character and the stuff people say to you, like even at my table today, somebody was saying that they're a more tolerant, open-minded person because of SpongeBob. And they said she was saying at first she didn't even want to watch SpongeBob. She goes, when I first saw it, I thought it was stupid. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah. It's stupid in the most brilliant possible way. And that's all. And that's Hillenburg. That's Hillenburg knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah.
He's a beautiful man.
And I think he still does know what he's doing.
Well, speaking of Hillenburg and the incredible work he's done, can you talk to us a little bit about your work with him and how you both all came together to bring these characters and this world of Bikini Mom and everything to life?
Sure.
Hillenburg was a very unusual person. I could tell the first time I met him when he had auditions. Usually in cartoons, you audition in a studio. It's somewhat antiseptic because you got the glass and then there's someone giving you directions. Stephen had auditions in a conference room. He had one of those little old school cassette decks, and he already had Tom as SpongeBob, what was then Sponge Boy, and he played me Tom on the cassette deck, and then I spoke into the microphone for his cassette deck, my best idea of what Patrick might sound like, and so I knew right away he was a different cat, a different animal. And sure enough, he did the session directing our first 3 seasons. And he would sit in the room with us recording. He'd set up a table and he'd doodle. And he would just make notes and then give us notes and just be, I'd love to have some of those doodles.
Yeah, and so much of what you just said, Bill, just goes to Steve being a really, just kind of very real, organic person. He's recording the auditions on this crappy little Kmart low-tech cassette deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And drawing on Post-it notes. And Steve was just he didn't care about money. He didn't care about fame. If anything, he thought that stuff kind of got in the way of his creativity a little bit. So he was much more just an artist, a surfer, an environmentalist, an ocean science enthusiast, a sculptor. He was just an amazing, really a Renaissance guy, a Renaissance man that really didn't make any big deal about how Renaissance he was. He really humble and beautiful and just really, like Bill said, highly unusual, yet you just instantly liked him and fell in love with him and wanted to please him. You just wanted to do a good job for him.
Yeah. It's so satisfying to make him smile.
Yeah, to make him smile was one of the most, you just felt like that was its own reward. Because you just liked him so much and you wanted to help this vision that he had that was, 110% him. All came from him. And then, at least for myself, I just felt that I was just the voice aspect of that. I was like that one chromosome of the character, and I just wanted to be that the way that he heard it. And like I said, you just wanted to help bring this thing to fruition in your own small little way. And just to quickly wrap up, he also gave us a lot of leeway. It was 100% his vision, but he was also secure enough that once he picked you for the job,
imagine that,
he would let you, security. He was a secure person in show business, and he would actually let you run with the ball, and that continues now. They give us a lot of leeway with our characters because Steve did, so we're just. We're just glad and amazed that we're still sitting up here with all this.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you guys. thank you.
Well, kind of going off of the kind of creative freedom that you discussed in your voices, both of your characters' voices are now very distinct. And did Hillenburg help you kind of find the voice for your characters? And if so, was there any inspiration outside that made you find SpongeBob's voice and found Patrick's voice? Like, where did that come from? Because now it's just seared into...
For me, it was since he already had Tom, like I said, he played Tom's voice. He didn't really steer me. He just said, well, I'm looking for Patrick to balance with SpongeBob.
So it was like about tones, like tonally, like
This is the tone that Tom is speaking in. What tone, Bill, do you think would go up against that tone?
Tone and rhythm.
yeah, like those two sounds are kind of cool together. And, and that's one hat that I didn't mention that Steve wore is that he was also very musical, and played guitar himself and was really into music. So I think in a lot of ways he thought in a musical way about the voices in a way that is kind of unusual in animation. Like he thought of the voices almost as musical instruments that he was kind of scoring his cartoon. And I know, talking about outside influences for me, when he brought me in, since Steve was not an actor, that was one thing he didn't do and didn't want to do, was being an actor. He could do practically everything else. But, so he never did a voice for me and said, this is what I want you to sound like, Tom, and then he did it. He just said, this is who SpongeBob is. He's half grown up, half a kid. He's got a foot in either one of those camps. He's half a boy and half a man. He works a job, he lives by himself, but he also goes to school, and when he gets together with his best friend, they hold hands and skip around like they're 4 years old at pre-camp. So he said, so what I'm thinking of, he said Pee Wee Herman, a Munchkin from The Wizard of Oz, Jerry Lewis, Stan Laurel from Laurel and Hardy. Those were all things that he threw out there. And he said, just mix all that up and see what you come up with. And
Especially with the Munchkin thing, Follow the Yellow Brick Road,
what came out was that. And he was like, yep, got it, fine. It was kind of one of the easiest jobs I've ever booked, ironically. Also, by far the longest lived. I've never held a job for 20 years.
And let me say, he casting you to do that and what you contributed to the character was so perfect. And also the fact that I guarantee you most voice actors trying to do SpongeBob, they wouldn't be alive anymore. I mean, their voices would not be alive anymore. Tom has a remarkable instrument in there that dazzles me every second.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Bill.
I'm glad you like my instrument, Bill. It's no Squidward clarinet, but it'll do.
Yeah, I mean, we really have fun at the sessions, and like I said, that Steve's not with us anymore, but when you get into that SpongeBob head and that SpongeBob game face, and we all record in the room together, it really is like everybody, even after 20 years, I gotta say, nobody is even thinking about phoning it in.
Oh yeah, no. Everyone wants to bring it.
Bill's screaming. We all got veins sticking out on our heads. And, Roger Bumpus Squidward is screaming at the top of his lungs. And Carolyn Lawrence Sandy, Doug Lawrence Plankton. Everybody's just. I really feel like 20 years ago was 2 weeks ago, right? Like I feel like we're still learning new things. As performers, as actors, about these characters, like weird places where their voices can go, weird sounds they've never made. And the animators are finding new stuff too. Like when we do a new episode and you look at the storyboard, you go, wow, I've never seen Patrick make that face before. Or like, wow, that's like a super ugly drawing of SpongeBob that I've never seen in 20 years. That's great. So everybody's, even after 20 years, you're still trying to bring it. It's not like there's some formula and the guardrails are on the road,
you must
and
serve
you
the
just
formula.
do yes. Serve the giant multinational $1 zillion copyright. Nobody is thinking that way on SpongeBob, and I think that's really remarkable. I feel like we dodged a bullet big time. That it still feels creative. Like it's this giant global entity, but it still feels artistic. When we do it, it still feels like everybody is still kind of being super right brain more than left brain, and it's it fascinates me to no end, like just
How many brains do you have?
My brain is my third instrument.
Well, one of my favorite episodes still, after all of the seasons, is Sailor Mouth, when, when you learn profanity and everything's bleeped, and it's just hilarious, and I think it mixes the children's aspect with a more mature tone, so it's a little bit for everybody. And I think that show is that's one of the reasons why this show is still so popular, because it's for kids and adults. I think you can get both out of it. Do you have either just your favorite episode or one that kind of gives a balance to both that would appease the whole audience?
that services the adult and the kid.
Yes.
I can tell you the human element of that was we were meeting some fans down at the San Diego Comic-Con, and this family came through. It was a mother, the dad, 3 kids, 9, 5, 2-year-old in the stroller. They were all dressed like Patrick. The entire family. It made me so happy. What an amazing thing to see.
I know, and I know that family that you're talking about.
Right.
He's like a really high-powered, like corporate, like copyright lawyer. So just funny that this guy that's like in quarters and he's like, you know,
tights.
oh my God, yeah, and he's like wearing tights and flowered shorts. He's got a point on his head. He's going, dude. You know? I just wonder, like, you know, how would Pepsi-Cola feel about him? You know, knowing that he's their lawyer and he's just dressed his entire brood up as a starfish and they're prancing around at a Comic-Con. But yeah, I love Sailor Mouth too. You know, to me, that's just a great idea, and it could almost work as an episode of a sitcom like Leave It to Beaver or some old show like that, where, you know, everybody probably has a similar experience as a little kid, where you picked up a word somewhere that you really didn't know what it meant, and you go around throwing it around to people, and they start freaking out. You know what I mean? What did you say? What did you say? What? What I do? You know? And so, you know, that is, even as weird and surreal as Bikini Bottom is, like, that's a relatable incident that can happen. Like, I remember my kid when my son was little and he got sent to the principal's office in like 2nd grade because he used the F word, you know what I mean? And we're like, what, you know? And then we questioned him. It turned out that the F word that he had used was fart. Like, it wasn't even, we're like, Matt, where did you learn that word? And he said, fart, I've always known that word, you know? I'm like, that's the F word? They put you in the principal's office for fart? Why are they wasting our time? Farts are funny, dang it. And, so, yeah, SpongeBob always straddles that line. Like, it was never meant to be a children's show meant for kids. Like, nobody was ever writing to children. Right, like none of the writers are going, oh, what would a 5-year-old like, or what would an 8-year-old like, what would a 9-year-old like? It's just, you know,
I think animators, storyboard artists, and animation writers, the job they always want is a job where they get to amuse themselves. They don't have to worry about writing to a pocket of a sensibility. They get to do what they really want, that something that inspires them, and we have the right writers and storyboard artists, that's for sure. And I think they really appreciate.
And they've been on the show for a long time, you know. So like the animators and the writers are people that we know, you know, that are on the show. It's not like we never see them, or it's always new people or whatever. And I think animators and storyboard people and voiceover people, we're all kind of the same. Well, we're all the kid that got sent, you know, we're all people that are making a living for stuff that, like, got us in trouble in 4th grade, you know what I mean? Like, and now we're paying them. The only reason I have a house is the stuff that got me in trouble in 4th grade, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, it's straight to the cardboard box under the bridge for me. You know, I have no plan B.
So,
One thing I love about Tom is, I love it as much now as I always have. He can't say the word animators without doing this.
A little OCD. Animators, guys, just in case, animators are people who draw, okay? All right?
I love
my God, I've never realized that I did that, Bill, and now
Well, thanks for making me self-conscious, Patrick. That was really nice of you.
so So quickly, I
Jerk.
wanted to ask you, speaking of kind of mature content, SpongeBob is now part of a huge meme culture. It's everywhere.
That was the one that started it all.
What are your thoughts on that? It just grew out of nowhere, but it's everywhere. Everyone uses them. What do you think about that?
As a Luddite, it really strains my comprehension just to really, I can't understand it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful that people get to interact with things that amuse them in a way like that. And I certainly never envisioned something where people would merge Patrick's face with Julia Roberts' face, which is my favorite Patrick meme.
I know, like how did that even happen? Like somebody had to have that thought, then laugh at it, and then go and Photoshop it. Yeah, you know, it's a lot of trouble to
Wait
make
a minute, I don't know how
and
this
then you
one
got to put it
looks,
out
yeah.
there, and then you're just hoping that other people will find it funny too. You know what I mean? I love because the meme makers, age-wise, the people that make the memes are people that grew up on SpongeBob. So to me, it's just kind of this cool. Like, I'm still getting my mind around it, you know, this cool, like, beautiful cycle where people who grew up with SpongeBob in the pre-internet age
Yes.
now are kind of taking elements of SpongeBob and turning it into this high-tech folk art almost, and like, and putting it out there,
like that.
and then another part, you know, the people that make the memes, and so the thing, and then. There's another layer to this that I've noticed just, you know, at the last couple of cons I've been to, is that now they have collectible figures made from the memes. So now we're signing the memes that were unofficial folk art made from SpongeBob. It's like, ah, you know, it's just like pop culture eating its own tail, you know, it's kind of cool.
And no one appreciates it more than Steven Hillenburg. He got enormous pleasure out of seeing what people would do. I remember once someone went to some island in the Pacific and brought me back a Christmas tree decoration that was a la the first film, a dead sea star, a dried sea star with googly eyes on it, painted shorts on him.
Like
and-
super creepy Etsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stuck and glued a yellow sponge with googly eyes to it. It's just, Steven loved that.
Yeah, because it was somebody trying their best, you know what I mean? It was somebody trying their best and they sold it at a gift shop and it looked kind of bad, you know, and weird, you know, inappropriate maybe. And Hillenburg was like, that's brilliant, you know? Like, what, you know, another really beautiful thing about Steve Hillenburg was that he didn't really, you know, he was glad that SpongeBob was popular and he loved the fans and he was happy that it connected with people. But like in terms of all the merchandise and all the stuff that they made with SpongeBob on it, he did not own any of that. Like he didn't have any of it. Like, you know, it was cool, but he didn't really care that much enough to own it, you know. But what he did have in his office, what his office was full of, was stuff like that, like bad SpongeBob, you know, like just you know, Tijuana figurines of SpongeBob with both eyes on the same side, and like funky looking pinatas, or like just like, you know, just some bad painting of SpongeBob that somebody was selling at a roadside stand, like that stuff. And he wasn't being mocking SpongeBob, you know. He really thought that was cool that people were making that stuff, and to him that was way more beautiful than some official merchandise that got cranked out in a factory somewhere, you know.
These opinions do not reflect those of Nickelodeon Properties. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. We're just dumb actors. But the best thing of that I found, and I gave Steve one, and he loved it, was on the streets of Madrid, Spain. There was a guy selling these really well sculpted, handmade figurines, and he just had them on a tray, and it was SpongeBob with his pants down, defecating. But the poo was yellow. Like,
wow.
it was this guy, and I just pictured this guy hand-lovingly painting each poop, you know.
Is that a wood? He carved it out of wood?
No, they were like, they were like ceramic, not ceramic, but like, they were like carved, you know. I guess it was wood. Wow.
Well, I think between that and
The poop was real poop.
SpongeBob being part of popular culture, whenever the show ends, it shouldn't, but whenever it does, I know that the show will have a legacy within popular culture, and it's all thanks to you and Hillenburg, and I really appreciate just the art that you guys have put on TV. We all love it, it's amazing. So I wanted to thank you guys.
Thank you, London, and thank
you,
you guys.
And thank you guys for coming to the panel.
Thanks for keeping us
much.
employed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, you guys are awesome.
That was fun, London.
That was fun. Yeah, thank you.
Yes! Oh my God! All right. You guys are all gonna have to sign a release. We're gonna need a really big piece of paper. Oh, there's one guy going, I'm on parole, I'm not supposed to be here. Witness protection program. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being props in our timeless photo. Thank you, guys. Love you. Oh,
All right, everyone, put your hands together one more time.